ever had a song just get stuck in your head? Because all day today I've just had the same little doo-wop thing just rolling through my head, and I spent a couple hours trying to figure out what it was. But yeah, it was the the little vocalization, and it was just do 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 do, and that was just over and over and over again all day. And I finally figured out what it was from. It was Semi-Charmed Life by Third Eye Blind. So I have been bumping that song all day. So yeah. Welcome to the Cinema Lounge podcast. My name is Garrett. I am your host, and I already told you what I've been doing today. I've been bumping some Third Eye Blind. But yeah, today, honestly, up until maybe 4 hours ago, I had no idea what I was going to talk about, because the movies and such that I had watched this week, I don't know, I didn't feel like I wanted to do a podcast episode about them quite yet, or at all. The TV I've been watching, didn't really feel like talking about any of that right now. I'm still in the middle of some stuff, and I might talk about that once I'm done. But I kind of just came into this going, I have no idea what to talk about, and a video popped up on my feed, on my YouTube feed, where this guy was talking about the problem with Superman and telling stories with Superman. And I kind of watched it and I was like, I think I want to talk about that. So today we are talking about the super-powered Boy Scout, Man of Steel, one of, if not the original superhero, probably the most recognizable and most popular superhero there is out there, Superman. But before I kind of get into my thoughts on Superman media and storytelling and kind of my suggestions on what I think screenwriters or storytellers could do to spice Superman up and make him more engaging, let's talk about the movie news we missed. I forget the name of this segment already. The movie news this week. This Week in Movie News is brought to you by corporate mergers. Yay! WarnerMedia is now officially merging with Discovery, owners of such riveting content as The Property Brothers, Headhunters, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, Finding Bigfoot, Cake Boss, and so much more. Discovery bought WarnerMedia from AT&T for $43 billion. They plan to spend $20 billion per year on new content, and they plan to break up WB Games. The new company is now valued at $150 billion. Also, WarnerMedia chief Jason Kilar, who helped bring us the Snyder Cut, will be negotiating his exit, apparently blindsided by this deal. This merger has also sparked rumors that Amazon is looking to buy MGM Studio for $10 billion. To continue the money talk, Saw sequel Spiral has topped this week's box office, earning $8.7 million in its debut, while Those Who Wish Me Dead flops. Let's turn now to some sequel news. Cult classic sci-fi hoodie horror hit Attack the Block will be getting itself a sequel, with John Boyega coming back as the lead role. The live-action Disney princess flick Enchanted will also be receiving the sequel treatment called Disenchanted. It will be streaming on Disney Plus next year, with Amy Adams, James Marsden, and Idina Menzel returning to their roles, and Maya Rudolph, Yvette Nicole Brown, Oscar Nunez, and Gabriella Baldacchino joining it. Here's a brief congratulations to Dave Filoni, who is now being listed as Lucasfilm's Executive Creative Director. Also, Zack Snyder has announced his next project, a retelling of the King Arthur story, but set during the American Gold Rush. Finally, here's some DC Comics news to wrap up the recap. First, there was a calendar leak earlier this week that revealed multiple images of the upcoming Matt Reeves movie The Batman. It gave us multiple looks at Robert Pattinson in the titular role, but the most notable leak was a first look at the film's main antagonist, Trash Bag Man. I mean, the Riddler. DC has also announced some future projects on their slate. We will be getting an animated kids show called My Adventures with Superman, and will star The Boys star Jack Quaid as Clark Kent. And we will also be getting a new Batman animated series coming from the minds of Bruce Timm, J.J. Abrams, and Matt Reeves. Also, DC's next animated movie in their animated universe will be based off of the Injustice comic books and video games. Lastly, the Batgirl solo movie has finally found its directors. Adele El Arbi and Bilal Fallah, I apologize if I butchered those names, who directed last year's Bad Boys for Life, will be helming the long-delayed project with current plans to go to HBO Max. And that has been this week in movie news. I hope you all enjoyed that segment. This week it felt light, but then sitting down and recording it and writing it, I was like, geez, there was actually a lot of stuff that happened this week. So let's just kind of dive into some of this. Obviously, the biggest news of the week was WarnerMedia merging with Discovery, which has been very interesting to kind of keep up with, just because it's kind of crazy that basically the Discovery Channel and HGTV and all those properties are now kind of technically owning, they own Superman, Harry Potter, DC Comics stuff, all this vast Warner Brothers content now, which will be interesting. AT&T has done an okay job, I think, with Warner Brothers. They've kind of fumbled the ball on a lot of stuff. So hopefully Discovery will kind of pick up that slack. And also the interesting part is they're going to spend $20 billion a year on new content, which is just very exciting. So every year we're going to be getting new stuff from WarnerMedia, which will be very exciting. I want to see where this goes, where this leads us. And I guess the other big part of it was Jason Kilar being ousted, blindsided by the deal. And on one hand, it's like, well, that kind of sucks, but also, dude's gonna walk away with a solid paycheck. It's not like he's gonna be on the streets now. He'll do fine, but yeah, it sucks just that he didn't know about this at all until it happened, and now he's kind of having to leave his job. And now we also have rumors that Amazon is in talks to buy MGM Studio. Major property of that is James Bond. That will be interesting. I think Amazon Prime has very underrated shows and underrated original content. So it'll be nice to kind of see that merge with MGM. And hopefully that means James Bond will be on Amazon Prime, because holy crap, I've spent the past year and a half trying to watch through all the James Bond movies in preparation for the new one that keeps getting delayed. And it is so difficult to just try to find a streaming service that has James Bond on it. It's been on Amazon. Some of them have been on Amazon Prime. Suddenly they just disappear. They've been on Netflix, and then they just disappear. They've been on Hulu, and then they just disappear. Right now they are on the free streaming service Tubi, but they're probably going to disappear one day. So it is very difficult to try to just get them all in one place and watch them all before they get taken off. So hopefully this means that James Bond will have a permanent home on Amazon Prime, because from the Bond movies I have seen, I'm getting invested in that whole world and that whole universe. Spiral topping last week's box office. I think early reports for this week are saying that it it's doing well this week again. I think it just crossed the Saw franchise into a $1 billion franchise, which is that's crazy. It took them what 9 movies to do it, but still, that's kind of crazy. Let's see, Attack the Block's getting a sequel. Very exciting. Attack the Block, very underrated horror movie. It's a sci-fi horror movie, but it's very underrated. It has some very fun and unique alien designs. I just really like the energy it brings, and I'm very happy that we're getting a sequel to it. And John Boyega's coming back. This is kind of everyone's first introduction to John Boyega. This was his breakout role, and then he went on to be Finn in Star Wars. So I'm excited to see kind of where he is coming from after coming back from such a huge franchise. Enchanted's getting a sequel. I grew up with two sisters who loved Enchanted. I watched it occasionally, and there is some sentimental value to this movie that makes me probably take more interest in this than the average person. But I think looking back at it, Enchanted was a very clever parody of the typical princess story. And I think that they did it well. So I'm kind of excited to see what the sequel entails, what they're going to bring to the table. Amy Adams and James Marsden are coming back, which is always fun. My big hang up is Maya Rudolph. Take a minute, almost said Maya. I had to do a couple of takes because I kept calling her Maya Rudolph. But Maya Rudolph, I don't know if this is a hot take or not, or if this is like a widely held opinion, because I know there are people who hold this opinion. I don't think Maya Rudolph is very funny. I don't think a lot of the people from SNL as of recent have been very funny, but Maya Rudolph is one of the worst offenders. I remember watching Lego Movie 2 in theaters, and I was very much enjoying it, having a laugh, and then Maya Rudolph walks in and does oh, I stepped on a Lego routine. But instead of just going, ow, I stepped on a Lego, that hurts like crap, or it would have even been funny if she dropped a curse word in front of the kids. That would have been funny. But instead it's, ooh, ooh, ow, ooh, ow, Lego, I stepped on a Lego, ow, ooh, that hurts. The worst thing in the world is stepping on a Lego. It's worse than something that hurts. And I'm like, that is the most lazy routine you could have done stepping on a Lego. People on the internet, Instagram meme pages, do much funnier ow, I stepped on a Lego jokes. So that is what I have in my mind when I picture Maya Rudolph comedy. I don't think she's that funny. I think she's a fine actress. She's been in some stuff that I really like. I think she was in this year's Mitchells versus the Machines. Don't quote me on that, but she's been in good movies and she has done good in them. But when she has to physically appear live action and do some sort of comedy routine, I just don't find her all that funny. She did the whole presidency on SNL. They did Maya Rudolph as Kamala Harris, and to me it wasn't that funny. I was just like, okay, I don't really understand why there were a bunch of people who just latched onto that specific one, pairing and were just like, oh my gosh, Maya Rudolph is so funny. Maya Rudolph has such a great sense of humor. And I'm just like, she's okay, I guess. So that's my main hang up. I think the reports are saying she's going to be the main antagonist, so hopefully that's different enough from what she usually does, which is more of a goofy side role. So hopefully as a main antagonist she gets to impress me or exceed my expectations. So hopefully that's the case. Yvette Nicole Brown's in it, which I love me some Yvette Nicole Brown. I love everyone from Community. I love seeing my community actors getting some freaking work because it seems like besides Kim Jong, jeez, I don't know, I almost called him the dictator. Kim Jong, Ken is getting hecka work. Dr. Ken Jong is getting hecka work right now, doing freaking Mass Singer, all the Hangover movies. I mean, his stand-up comedy's going crazy. And like everyone else is just kind of doing their own thing, popping up here and there. So it's good to see my girl Yvette Nicole Brown getting some work, getting some love. Dave Filoni's getting promoted, which is causing speculation that, oh no, Kathleen Kennedy might get fired, which I have seen nothing to substantiate that. It's mostly just rumors or speculation of people going, well, I hope this means she gets fired, which I wouldn't necessarily be against. I mean, I don't ever want to root for someone to lose their job unless they're genuinely butchering it. And even then, I just like, if I'm at a McDonald's and this kid's just screwing the pooch, I don't, even then, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to just say, I want to talk to the manager. This kid needs to be fired. Because I feel bad. I don't want to be the responsible for someone losing their job. But Kathleen Kennedy has not really handled the Star Wars property super well. She has dabbled in way too many controversies. She has made statements about the focus and direction she wants to go in with Star Wars that A, pissed a lot of people off, but B, I just was uninterested in. And I guess you could hold her responsible for my large disinterest now in Star Wars. I mean, I don't want to fully blame her, but just kind of after the disaster that was The Rise of Skywalker, I just kind of noped out of Star Wars for a bit. And even now, I mean, I was late to the party seeing the new final season of the Clone Wars. I think I was about a year late on that. Started The Mandalorian a year late. And as I've said previously on a podcast, I stopped watching that because Disney sucks as a company, and it just pissed me off enough to where I just went, I have no motivation to finish this show now. But it seems like a lot of people love The Mandalorian. Dave Filoni was the creative head of that. Well, I think one of the creative heads of that. He was the creative head of the Clone Wars, which is widely beloved, great cartoon. So I think because of all of this push behind him, people just saying Dave Filoni's the best, pushing him up. I think Lucasfilm is now just, well, we got to keep giving him higher and higher positions, and I think there's the possibility that Kathleen Kennedy might get pushed out of her position, but I don't think right now this is like a definite guarantee. This is just kind of a good for him, let's see where this goes type news. Zack Snyder's new movie. I don't know. I'm not a Snyder. What's the fan group called? I'm not a Snyder bro. I definitely have my issues with the movies I've seen from him. I wouldn't even say they're perfect. Even people that aren't Snyder bros absolutely love 300 and his Justice League movie. And I think both of them are just okay. I think they're like solid, but there's some flaws in there. So I'm definitely not on the Zack Snyder hype train, but the King Arthur story set during the American Gold Rush seems interesting, I guess. I'll watch it. I mean, I went and watched his newest movie in theaters. He has the tendency to come up with cool ideas and cool visuals. I just think he has issues with following through on them. And then the big stuff, DC Comics news. First off, oof, ugh. Okay, so then Batman has revealed, well, unofficially revealed through these leaks, our first full look at the Riddler. I'm seeing some people love it. Seeing some people hate it. The people who love it say, "Oh, this is really cool." They're modeling him off of they're modeling him off of the Zodiac Killer. He's gonna like probably change his costumes throughout the movie. This looks so intimidating and scary. And then the people who don't like it are pretty much saying, this man's got a garbage bag on his head. What? I've seen some fan edits where they added some color to it and it looks a bit better, but I'm more in the middle, but leaning towards the dude just kind of has a trash bag on his head with some glasses poking out of it. Like, sure, if you want to do the Zodiac Killer, that's fine, and it's an interesting idea to merge the Zodiac Killer with the Riddler because both of them leave behind clues to kind of taunt the investigators. So it's not an unfounded merging. The issue, though, is it looks like the dude has a trash bag on his head. And it doesn't look super intimidating to me. And I'm just a fan of the Riddler look, of the green and purple. He's got like the purple mask, kind of the bowler cap, the question marks all over his suit and tie. Like, yeah, it doesn't look super intimidating, but it looks iconic, and it looks like a guy who doesn't give a crap if people know who he is. He wants people to know who he is. He doesn't leave the riddles behind because, oh, I want to confuse the people so they'll never figure out who I am. The Riddler's whole deal is, I want people to know that I am smarter than you. I am smarter than anyone, so I'm going to leave clues behind that help detain me just for the simple fact that I'm so confident no one will be able to figure it out because I'm too smart for him. That's how he operates. He wants people to know, he wants to prove to himself that he's smarter than everyone. So going the Zodiac trash bag man route is a bit detached from who he is as a character. That being said, I don't think it deters any of my excitement for the movie. I think I'm definitely gonna go see it. This is probably my most anticipated superhero project in the next couple of years. This is the superhero project that I'm really interested in and really curious about, even though there are things that are starting to give me pause, but not enough to make me go, ugh, I don't want to watch it anymore. Because like Marvel, the route Marvel's going, I'm very just 50-50 on all their projects. Because I'm like, there's some good, interesting stuff and stuff that I just do not care about. But at least with that Batman, it's everything I'm finding out is either, oh wow, this is super interesting. This is supposed to be him, Batman, a year into him as Batman, kind of working through the kinks. Okay, cool. We're gonna have Oswald Cobblepot running for mayor. Awesome. And for those who don't know, that's the Penguin. We have kind of the serial killer running around who is the Riddler. That's interesting. But then we get Trash Bag Man. We have, oh, Catwoman's going to be in this, and we're going to race change, or we're going to race change James Gordon. And it's stuff like that. That's like, well, that they shouldn't have done that. Or they didn't have to do that. But it's not something that makes me go, oh, what? I'm not gonna see this piece of trash now. You know, I'm very reserved when it comes to movies and stuff like that. I don't usually get upset with news like that. Like I'm passionate about it, but it's like I'm not gonna get upset because James Gordon is black. It's just, first off, Jeffrey Wright. If you're gonna cast anyone nowadays, Jeffrey Wright would make a great James Gordon, but you know, you realize that they intentionally went out and said, look, we have James Gordon, we have a traditionally white character, we're just going to make him black for no reason. And that's what they did. That's what most of these race change castings are, is just, we're just going to do it for no reason, either because we can or because we want to pat ourselves on the back. Either way, it's kind of lazy. I mean, if you really wanted to use Jeffrey Wright, you could have just brought in Aaron Cash. Just saying. I love Aaron Cash. Aaron Cash is a great Gotham police character. And you could have brought in an older Aaron Cash and maybe even have him develop a bond with Batman. You have a young James Gordon kind of seeing this. That would be interesting. That would be an interesting dynamic to work out. But, let's just race change it. In my opinion, it's just lazy. And I know that's not what the main story was about. Trash Bag Man. Trash Bag Man's okay. But, yeah, I'm still going to see this movie. Then we have My Adventures with Superman, which, by the way, they're bringing back Jimmy Olsen for this. And, of course, they took a traditionally red-headed character and decided to make him black for no reason. And that has caused some people to get upset. I don't know what it is about redheads that they have to do that. Because, as far as I'm aware, redheads are also a minority in this country. There's not a lot of redheads out in the world. You could go to Ireland and find quite a bit of redheads. But here, in Hollywood, there's Bella Thorne, Isla Fisher, the entire Ron Howard family, and Jessica Chastain. That is probably the only group of redheads in Hollywood. And outside of that, in the broad U.S. of A., there's not that many redheads. I've maybe met 2 redheads in my lifetime. But, yeah, I don't know what it is about that, because at least with redheads, you can just dye people's hairs red. Well, and even with animation, you don't even need to cast a redhead. You can cast whoever you want and just keep Jimmy Olsen, Jimmy Olsen. So I don't know why they went with that choice. Also, this one still I saw that I put up in the segment, it reminds me a little bit of Owl House, which I have not seen, but I've seen multiple clips from. It's a Disney XD show created by, I think, Alex Hirsch's wife, who... Alex Hirsch is the guy who created Gravity Falls, which is one of my favorite shows of all time. So I've been interested in watching Owl House. But that's what the animation style looks like, and I just don't like it for a Superman cartoon because it makes it seem like they're going to follow the Owl House tone, which from what I've heard is very similar to the Gravity Falls tone. I don't want a Gravity Falls tone for a Superman show. I don't. It works well for Gravity Falls. And every subsequent show that has tried to mimic that has not done it really that well. And that sort of hyper self-aware, self-referential humor, I don't think would work that well with Superman. It would work only in the context of maybe bringing in Mr. Mxyzptlk, who is a fifth-dimensional elf or deity or whatever. I forget. He's basically like this genie in a bottle, and he can change the world and change atoms. That kind of tone would fit well for a show about him, which I'm not saying I want to see, but that would fit more an episode featuring him or, a show about him. Superman is more straight-laced. He is everybody's favorite Boy Scout. He's more serious, more compassionate, and that kind of stuff just doesn't really fit that well within that kind of style. So, yeah, I'm probably not gonna watch this. That, and they're explicitly saying it's a kids animated show. I don't think they advertise stuff like Gravity Falls like that, which was clearly made for both adults and kids. So I'm probably not that excited. Jack Quaid as Clark Kent. That also just does not bode well because Jack Quaid is Huey from The Boys, who is a scrawny pipsqueak. He would fit well as Jimmy Olsen, but not Superman. And then we have a new Batman animated series coming from Bruce Timm, J.J. Abrams, and Matt Reeves. That is exciting. That I would actually watch. I know nothing about it, but if I remember right, Bruce Timm is the guy who's headed up the Batman animated series back in the day. And then J.J. Abrams, he produces a mean show. Most of the shows I've seen that he's produced, I've loved, front to back. Now, writing-wise, that has me a little worried. I don't think he's writing, I think he's producing. But, you look at Lost. He set all this crap up, couldn't figure out how to finish it, so he just he just jumped ship. But I mean, he's produced Person of Interest, which personal favorite of mine, and he has produced Fringe, which I think is a very underrated uh, X-Files like show. But he produces really good shows, I think. So I'm excited about that. The Injustice movie, I haven't watched any of the animated DC stuff yet. I hear a lot of it is good, so I'll check it out eventually. But as of right now, I'm kind of indifferent. And then lastly, Batgirl solo movie. I'm kind of excited about it. I know I'm not like the biggest Batgirl fan. Not a lot of people probably are, but I think I'm more of a fan of her than probably the average person because I think the very first comic line I read was a Batgirl comic line. It was a New 52 Batgirl comic line that introduced just random small time rogues gallery for her, and I really liked it. I know New 52 doesn't have the best reputation amongst fans, but I found myself really enjoying that brief comic line. I think I read all the way up until the art style changed, and then I kind of hopped off. But those first like 10, 20, 30 issues I really enjoyed, and it kind of gives me some ideas of they could probably do X, Y, or Z with a Batgirl movie. But they finally found its directors, which are the two people who directed Bad Boys for Life from last year. Bad Boys for Life, I loved it. I think it's the best Bad Boys movie. Because the first two are just kind of dumb fun. This one kind of puts the characters on blast. Actually has them go through some stuff, develop. So I think this will be a good fit. That kind of gives us some insight as to what a Batgirl movie will look like. It'll probably be kind of over the top action quips, but with R-rated action. Which, if that holds true, if we get like an R-rated Batgirl movie where she is in these brutal fights, there's brutal shootouts, just all around craziness. I think this will be a very fun movie, and it has made my interest peak ever so slightly for this movie. But yeah, it was surprisingly packed with movie news this week. I mean, I'm already at like the 35 maybe minute mark. Probably not that long, but yeah, it's enough to talk about that long for, which is good, considering I don't know how long I'm going to talk about the actual main subject for the show today, which will be about Superman as a character. Speaking of all this DC comics news, we are talking today about Superman as a character and kind of just the media he's been in, the movies and TV shows he's been in, and I think what the TV shows get right about him, where the movies falter. So, for me, I'm not super nostalgic about Superman. I have come to an appreciation of him over the years, but when I was a kid, he was one of my least favorite superheroes in terms of prominent superheroes that I would see all the time. I know there's like, arm fall off boy. No one gives a crap about him, but as a kid, I was like, who cares about Superman? He's just a Boy Scout. He's a goody goody two shoes. you know, you, that made him seem boring. He's super strong. He can do anything, and he's just a goody goody two shoes. Like, why would I care? At least Captain America, can't leap a giant building in a single bound and fly at the speed of light. At least he's more humanish. He's just kind of strong. But the more I found out about Superman, and the more videos I watched breaking down who he is as a character, the more interesting he became, because it wasn't that he's perfect. He's not perfect. He has his struggles, but I think what makes him the most interesting is the fact that he's actively choosing to do good. He has all these powers. He's an alien. He could conquer the earth if he wanted to. But instead he chooses to basically serve us to an extent, to protect us. And in a sense, he's the most human out of all of us. And by all of us, I mean like general fictional DC Earth. But he he constantly makes sacrifices to his personal life just to make sure people are safe. He delves his time into his work. He has a family. He tries to learn good values, teach good values, right? He was raised by the right parents. Mom and Pa Kent helped shape him to be who he is, and I think that Mom and Pa Kent are some of the best superhero parents in comics because they helped shape Superman into what he is. It wasn't just like, oh, well, we died and now he's got to avenge your death and learn. No, like they actively participated in his development growing up, and in some cases, Pa Kent dies, and then in other cases he doesn't. But there's always a good relationship between them, and that helps make Superman more idealistic, more almost naive. He thinks that there's good, always going to be good in the world, and that's what he wants to protect and preserve. And that's what makes him an interesting character, is that it's his inherent belief in the goodness of people, and hope. He represents hope, and that makes for a very interesting and compelling character where he is kind of one-track minded. And sure, he might be a little bit of a goody two-shoes, but he also has to fight people he could squash like insects on the daily basis, right? So he's a very compassionate individual, and almost serves as this ideal for humans. He doesn't see himself as that, but he almost represents what we could be, and that, I think, makes him a great character. And where I think a lot of the movies go wrong is that they don't depict him as that. This is most definitely going to be a hot take, and this might even be a hot take for myself, but there's not a perfect Superman movie. There's not a perfect Superman movie. I know the top two people come up with when it comes to what is the best Superman movie out there. It's either Man of Steel or the original Richard Donner's Superman. And I've seen both. I've also seen Superman 2 and Batman vs. Superman. I have not seen Superman 3, Superman 4, Quest for Peace, and I think there's a Superman 5? I don't know. And then there's Superman Returns, which I think some people think is underrated. I've yet to see it, but I've seen the three that people usually look to as the best of Superman. Superman 2 is not in the conversation near as much as I thought it was, but there's that one. But the main two, Richard Donner Superman, Man of Steel from Zack Snyder. And while both of them are really good, I really enjoyed both of them. I would give both of them 8s or 9s out of 10s. But neither of them, I think, get at the core what Superman is. I think Zack tried to show us the development of him into that, because Man of Steel really serves as a Superman origin story of Kal-El is trying to figure out where he is in this world, where he belongs, what he should do with his powers, and he has a father who is depicted more flawed, where most incarnations, Pa Kent is always, you have to help people, it almost the whole with great power comes great responsibility, morals being ingrained in Clark. But this time around, Pa Kent, he's never done this before. He's never raised a kid before, much less raise a kid from another planet. So he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't want to put his kid in danger. That's at the core of most parents. Most parents have this biological urge to protect their kids. So when Clark is going out, putting himself out there, he's putting himself at risk. He's either putting himself at physical risk, or he's going to put himself out in the public where government's going to be coming around because that's what government does. So when he talks to Pa Kent, when Pa Kent and Clark talk, and I don't know why I keep saying Pa, his name's Jonathan. Jonathan and Clark talk after Clark saves a kid on a bus, and Clark says, "Well, what was I supposed to do? Let him drown?" And Jonathan just looks at him and goes, "I don't know." And I know that's a big point of contention for a lot of people, where they say, "Oh, well, that's not Jonathan Kent." And I understand that. And I think the point of that is more of an I don't know, as in I genuinely don't know what the right decision was, because as your parent, as your father, I want you to be safe. I want you to stay safe, and you doing that made it to where you weren't safe, but you also saved a boy's life. So I think a lot of people's genuine answers would have been in that situation. I don't know. But that being said, because of that moment, and because Jonathan Kent is depicted as is depicted more like Kevin Costner. Because Kevin Costner plays this role, and he plays sullen, flawed heroes really well. He shapes Jonathan Kent into being someone who doesn't really understand what he's doing, someone who's just kind of trying to figure out along with Clark, which is an interesting dynamic, but then also then sacrifices a lot of the ingrained values that Superman comes with, and leading to the very controversial climactic fight where Zod and Superman just go head to head and utterly destroy Metropolis and kill multitudes of people. And audiences had an issue with that, and I don't disagree, because regardless of if he's new to this, Superman should already have the values set before him that human life is valuable. Every person's life is valuable regardless of who they are. And because he doesn't have those values instilled in him in the movie, he just kind of indiscriminately destroys buildings in order to defeat Zod, which is not the Superman we know and love. That's not who Superman is at the core. And what I have always held as a position of, when it comes to my feelings on comic book accuracy, you don't have to be 100% accurate. It doesn't have to look 100% the same, sound 100% the same, tell stories 100% the same way. But it has to keep consistent the core of the character. If you're going to have a Spider-Man movie, you have to have, with great power comes great responsibility. Not with maybe word for word, but that has to be ingrained in what Peter Parker believes and what motivates him. That has to be there, non-negotiable. He has to quip, and he has to have these personal losses, personal relationships with the villains he goes up in contact with, because that is everything about his character. Poor Peter Parker. He has friends and a struggling personal life. But if you take all that away, strip it all away, and make Spider-Man a sullen, brooding hero who breaks criminals' legs because he can, and he has to get the information out of them any way possible. And he doesn't give a crap about his villains. They're just in the way of justice. That doesn't sound like Spider-Man. That sounds like a blend of the Punisher and Batman. So you have to get the core of every character, and I think Man of Steel, despite being a solid movie and an interesting take on Superman, does not depict that very well. You have to have Superman's value set somewhere instilled in him, even if it is Jonathan Kent saying, "Here are the values I want to instill in you," and Superman rejecting it, and then by the end of the movie learning that that's what he has to accept. Even that would have still been consistent with who Superman is, and I would even dare say that would make for a more interesting movie. In terms of Richard Donner's Superman, first off, I know a lot of people love it. A lot of Men my dad's age loved it. But first off, Superman's flying around the sun, or around the Earth, to reverse its rotation and thus reversing time is one of the stupidest plot conveniences I've ever seen. I'm sorry. It is one of the stupidest plot conveniences I've ever seen. And I'm sorry if you hear barking. My dog is outside barking at nothing. She does that sometimes. But yeah, that's one of the stupidest plot conveniences I've ever seen. Also, I do not like the way Lex Luthor was portrayed in this. That's more of an issue I have with this movie. I think Superman, honestly, Christopher Reeves, oh my gosh, did an amazing job as Superman. He's a bit dorky, but I think that works for Superman's character because he is kind of small town, all American boy. He's going to be a little awkward when it comes to city life, and especially, I think, when it comes to women. He's just going to be kind of that naturally dorky guy, which helps him blend into the setting around him. So I guess when it comes to Richard Donner's Superman, it's not so much as they get Superman completely wrong, but I think they get Lex Luthor wrong. Like, Gene Hackman does a great job, but Richard Donner Lex Luthor is just goofy. He's just like an eccentric billionaire who wants to buy California and then cut it off of the world or something. And it's like, that's so Saturday morning cartoon Lex Luthor. And granted, I haven't read any Superman comics from that era. Maybe that's what Superman was. But at this point in time, the core of Lex Luthor's character is he wants to be the best. You know, Superman threatens that. Superman is an superior being. And Lex doesn't like that. Lex likes to be at the top. Lex likes to have all the power. Lex likes to have all the admiration. And when Superman's around, he can't have that. But he's also a businessman, ruthless businessman, but he's selfish, he's serious. He's all about the business. He's not going to do some stupid harebrained scheme to separate California from the rest of the U.S. just so he can own it. That's silly. So with that, that's my major issue with Richard Donner's Superman. If Superman 2, it was solid. I think it too was a bit too goofy. But Christopher Reeves continued to kill it. Terrence Stamp as General Zod was great. And I liked them getting used to their powers, but I mean, it was just really weird that it was like, I think it was a 2-hour movie, and for the first hour and a half, our main antagonist and our main protagonist, Superman Zod, didn't share a scene together or even like get in conflict or say, I gotta stop that guy. Both of them were doing their own thing until an hour and a half through the movie, so it was just kind of boring up until then. But my major issue is just, I think there are countless possibilities for telling Superman stories out there, and for the large part, so Richard Donner's Superman, we had Lex Luthor as our main antagonist, our main conflict. Superman 2 was Superman, Zod, and then Lex Luthor was kind of there as well. Superman 3, I'm pretty sure it was just Richard Pryor as the main antagonist, if I remember. If memory serves me correctly, I haven't seen it, but from what I have seen, I think Richard Pryor is supposed to be the main antagonist, and he like does something to Superman. Superman has to fight himself, and then Quest for Peace is Nuclear Man, because Cold War. Then Man of Steel, we had Zod again. Superman Returns, Lex Luthor, seeing a pattern here. Batman vs. Superman, Lex Luthor, and then Doomsday, I guess, if you want to count that. And then we had the 2 Justice League movies with Steppenwolf and Darkseid. But if you notice the pattern, there was a lot of emphasis on Lex Luthor and Zod. And then we had 2 movies where it was just random crap that doesn't, as far as I'm aware of, isn't even in the comics. Yet there is an entire Let me pull it up. But there is an entire rogues gallery that you could pull from that would make such interesting movies that you just absolutely refuse to do. And I think this is my major thing right now. I want to get excited for a Superman movie, and with this Ta-Nehisi Coates written Superman movie coming out, I'm probably it's probably not gonna be great, to be honest. But at the very least, let's not have it be about Lex Luthor, and especially if you're gonna racialize it, let's not. That's probably who they're gonna go with, because he's kind of the prototypical. If we're gonna racialize something, let's do a evil rich white dude. That's exactly what Lex is, so that's probably who they're gonna go with. But there's a vast array of very popular villains that you can pull from, that you can make interesting stories with, that have very strong themes to it. I just have a list, so I'm gonna go through this list. I think after that, we'll be done. We'll wrap it up. This is just me rambling, as always. But first off, you have Bizarro. I know there's the trend of, oh, well, let's just take the main superhero, make a copy of them, and make them evil. But what would make Bizarro work? Bizarro is a flawed clone of Superman made by Lex Luthor. But Bizarro isn't Superman. He's the exact opposite. He's dumb. He is childlike. He doesn't have heat vision. He has freeze vision. He doesn't have frost breath. He has heat breath. He still flies, I think, but basically all of his powers are kind of the reverse of Superman's. But he still desires to be Superman. He thinks he's Superman at first, but then when he finds out he isn't, he wants to be Superman. So this isn't like a Iron Man Ironmonger situation where the villain's just the good guy but gray and bigger. Bizarro is a child who genuinely wants to do good and thinks he does good, but he has a temper problem, but he also, he also wants to do good. He thinks he's doing good, and Superman has to guide him in that. And I think it would be maybe not as a main antagonist, but especially if you're going to bring in Lex Luthor, have a plotline where Lex creates Bizarro, and a lot of the main plot is Bizarro's struggle with trying to figure out what's right and wrong, and Superman having to take on almost this copy of him. He has to face, maybe have Bizarro kind of display all the flaws of Superman, or what Superman has to recognize as his flaws, and Clark has to kind of come to terms with that while also guiding a very lost person towards a place where they can do good. Because I think in most depictions, and I'm going to base this off of the Superman animated series because that is a top-notch show that doesn't get talked enough about, and I think perfectly displays who Superman is. But with Bizarro, Superman's always just kind of dismissive as him. It's almost like he sees this illegitimate son, which is also developed in Young Justice, where Superman has to be the surrogate father of Superboy, who is a clone of him as well. And it freaks him out because he doesn't know what to do about it. He's never had to deal with that before, and he has to learn to step into a role of fatherhood of someone who is basically him. And I think that is a very interesting position to put the Man of Steel into. And no one has done it. I'm not going to read all of these off. You got like the Atomic Skull, which that would make for visual interesting stuff, but he wouldn't be able to be a main focus. You have like Bloodsport, okay, but here's one of the biggest crimes. You're not going to put Brainiac in a Superman movie. Brainiac is next to Lex Luthor, I would say, as the arch nemesis of Superman, and you're not going to put this man in a movie. Brainiac represents everything Superman could have been. Brainiac is a conqueror. He doesn't care about life. He's cold, he's calculating, he's incredibly intelligent, but does not have compassion or empathy towards anybody. He is just essentially a cyborg alien, and he it would just present like really interesting obstacles for Superman. But just imagine Superman having to face off with something he could have been, a planet conquering, cold, heartless individual. That would be so interesting. Plus, if y'all haven't seen Krypton, which was on Sci-Fi, which I watched, it's not a great show, but oh my gosh, did they do Brainiac right? Brainiac A looks so good in the show. Like, this is on a TV budget. Imagine what a live action Brainiac could be on a blockbuster budget. So there's that, but also they just portray his character so well as this cold, heartless individual who's just about collecting and just about conquering. That would be a great movie and great antagonist. Here's a brief one. Bruno Mannheim is kind of the most prominent gangster for Superman. And I think that they need to include this guy in a lot more stuff. Not because he's particularly good as an antagonist or as a character, but just because he always serves to be a part of Darkseid storylines somehow. And I just really like the idea of using a mafia boss who's a street level guy. And most of his most prominent roles and stories always serve to be a part of the most important, most dangerous supervillain Superman has ever faced. It's not like, oh, he does some stuff, gets involved with, like, no. He just crosses paths with Darkseid. And I think they just need to make use of that because that in and of itself is such a unique situation for a character from comic books. But also that would just produce a lot of humor. And it's kind of crazy they don't use him because he would be great as also just throwaway antagonist for Superman to fight at like the beginning of a movie to just kind of establish who Superman is and the world around him and the world in which he stands in. I think that would be he would be a fun addition to a live action movie. Let's see. Cyborg Superman is kind of, I would say, a combination of Bizarro and Brainiac. He is cold, he is heartless, but he also wants to be Superman. He came about after Superman died in the comics and was one of the 3 or 4 characters who tried to replace him. And he is very manipulating. He likes to lie to people. He can hide in plain sight as Superman. I think that would be very interesting to have like an imposter. The internet has ruined me saying the word imposter. Oh my gosh. But having an imposter among the U.S. and pretty much either tampering with Superman's identity or trying to be better than Superman ever could be. I think that would help provide unique challenges to Superman. Obviously, we have Darkseid, who technically has been in a Justice League movie, but he hasn't done much. We really needed a live-action Darkseid to face off against Superman, like, badly. We have Doomsday. Batman vs. Superman absolutely just, like, destroyed Doomsday. Come on, like, the design, his purpose. No. We need a proper Doomsday, who's literally just... is literally just a creature built to fight and destroy and adapt. And he's virtually indestructible. And it would be so cool to have a proper Superman death plotline. That would be great. General Zod, obviously he's been in 2 movies, but I don't think the most interesting thematic part of his character has been properly explored yet. I think that they could have easily done something where he would serve as a great first antagonist for Superman to face off against, which is why they probably picked him for Man of Steel, but he sees Earth not as a people. He sees it as a tool to be used to create Krypton, recreate Krypton, and make Krypton great again. I guess technically remake Krypton and restore it. But very simply, he is a military leader, but he's also a scientist who saw what his previous government was doing. They were destroying the Earth, and he took a more radical approach than Kal-El's father did. First off, great dynamic, helps establish what he thinks, and also his relationship with Kal-El, which makes it more personal. But the other thing too is Zod has no value for human life. He does not care about humans. He only cares about Kryptonians and restoring something that is long gone. He is obsessed with the past. I think that would help in a first Superman movie to help Superman realize people are worth fighting for, and then realizing why people are worth fighting for. Why is humanity worth fighting for? What makes humanity valuable? Why is it that he's going to choose to stick with humanity rather than try to recreate the place of his people? And why is he going to abandon that to protect humans? I think that would be interesting questions to propose that Zack Snyder did not do in Man of Steel. And I think that would provide just excellent philosophical and internal conflict in Superman and in Zod, where Zod has to confront what humanity is. But I think that would create an interesting story. And while I do think at this point Zod has been overused as a character, if you ever want to make a reboot, I would say one of the main antagonists you have to consider would be Zod as that first movie, because I think he could do so much to help Clark Kent, or Kal-El, if you will, help Kal-El recognize why humanity is so important and why he chooses to protect humanity and why he chooses to go by Clark Kent instead of Kal-El. I think that would be such an interesting conflict that hasn't been properly explored yet. Ooh, let's see. There's a couple of minor antagonists. Jax-Ur is like a crazy scientist from Krypton. I don't know much about him, and I haven't read a lot about him, so you could probably use them if you wanted to, because he is a bigger Superman villain, but I have zero ideas on what to do. Lex Luthor's used a lot. Metallo is a big one they have not used yet in live action, if you don't count the Supergirl TV show. But I think Metallo would be very interesting because he is someone who becomes a cyborg. A lot of cyborg villains for a Superman. But he becomes a cyborg and gets a Kryptonian heart. Then he uses to kind of attack Superman. I don't know how well he would work as a main villain, but if you're ever going to make a Superman movie with Lex Luthor as the main antagonist, make Metallo that secondary antagonist. Because A, he provides a very unique challenge to Superman because he actually wields kryptonite as a heart. He can shoot kryptonite rays. He's super strong. And I think he's just a fun character that hasn't properly been used yet. I don't really have any philosophical, thematic challenges or conflicts, but I want to see live action Metallo. You have Mongol. Come on. I mean, he's basically Darkseid Light a little bit, but dude drives a planet around and just, freaking fights people. He has a gladiator planet that he just pilots around. That's freaking cool. You gotta you gotta somehow fit that into either a Justice League movie or a Superman movie. His other main impact is, what's it called? I think it's like the Nightshade flower or something like that, where he has this parasitic alien that he puts on Superman that causes Superman to see an ideal life where Krypton wasn't destroyed or where Jonathan Kent didn't die. And he's proposed with all these what ifs, and Superman chooses, no, I want to live in the real world. He embraces reality. He embraces tragedy. And that is a very great story that I would like to see adapted. I don't know why specifically Mongol was the one who facilitated that, but I would really like to see, at the very least, that specific storyline. And if you want to facilitate it by Mongol, once again, that confronts Superman with all these what-if situations, and he chooses to embrace the flawed reality. Once again, I think that makes Superman a much more interesting character, and learning about these villains and the challenges they pose to Superman makes Superman more interesting. People want to get more invested in him, and I think that's great. And I think it's all in the villains you choose, because if you choose the wrong villain or you reuse boring villains, you don't care about the hero as much. That's why I get super into the villains, because it's all about who they are, but also how they directly challenge our heroes. I mentioned him earlier, but Mr. and Mrs. Spitlick, he also presents Superman with different realities. He's like, oh well, you can do whatever you want when I'm with you. He's an imp. That's what he is, from the fifth dimension. He has reality bending powers, and he just uses it to amuse himself by messing with Superman. Probably not something you want to put in a movie, but he's a fun character that I think it would be fun to include. The Parasite is another that would probably serve better as a secondary antagonist, but he's able to absorb powers and absorb energy. So he's another one of those characters who can kind of become Superman if he wants, but he's someone who just lives to feed. A lot of the times he just can't help himself. He is a human corrupted by science. And I think he would make for a fun, interesting character. I've pretty much talked about like the main ones that I would love, that would genuinely be great. But you have characters that are just unused. The Silver Banshee, who is this woman who has screams that I think can drain the life out of people. That's awesome. You have freaking Titano the Super Ape, who is a giant chimp with kryptonite vision. That's probably too goofy, but still, that's fun. Toyman, who is a very creepy antagonist, and on one hand it's like, how would he go up against Superman? But on the other hand, he's such an interesting character, and depending on the incarnation, such an interesting design. I want to see a live action version of the Toyman as this creepy figure, intruding figure, who's just kind of bent on revenge, or bent on this very like personal motivation. And it says here, he's sometimes comical but also very dangerous. That would make for a very great duality for a supervillain. Superman has to face off against this guy who, while being evil, super dangerous, is super goofy, and Superman could break like a twig. That would help Superman practice restraint and challenge his views on the value of human life. You can almost do a dual thing of he faces off against the Toyman and someone like Brainiac or Zod, who think, oh, human life is me. It's a little bit like Wonder Woman, where Ares brings in Dr. Poison. It's like, look at them, they destroy themselves. But you could do it a lot better. I don't think that's executed as well. But if you want something like that for Superman, Toyman's the way to do it. Because Toyman, I think, is the perfect example of someone who does evil, and someone who could challenge Superman in his views of the inherent value of human life. I think that works. And then I think the last major character is the Ultra Humanite, who's basically like, he's like Gorilla Grodd, but without the telepathy. He's just really intelligent. I'm looking at him like, on one hand, he might be a little too goofy, but on the other hand, it says he's the first supervillain ever faced. So he's the first supervillain Superman ever faced in the golden age of comics. So you got to throw him a bone occasionally. Come on now. But yeah, I mean, that's just some of the antagonists. Those are the major ones. But there's so many of them, specifically Brainiac, that have not been used that should and need to be used. And then there's some like Zod who have not been used properly. I think Lex Luthor, he is the perfect antagonist for Superman because he is the person who constantly challenges Clark's view of the inherent value of human life. He is all about himself, all about money and power, and his almost short man syndrome when it comes to superpowers and just power in general makes him just naturally antagonistic towards Superman. And I think his dynamic with Superman works most of the time, but also Lex needs probably more proper justice done in live action movies. But yeah, those are just kind of my ideas, my general thoughts on Superman as a character, his antagonist, and just stories they could use to fully make Superman realized as a proper character, as someone who is interesting, because I think the movies fail to make Superman interesting as a character. He's either, while Christopher Reeves does a great job, he's either the overblown Boy Scout who just, golly gee, I just do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, or super brooding Zack Snyder Superman. We kind of need a happy medium, I think, where he has his flaws, he has his challenges, while still being that Boy Scout, but in a more wise and less naive way. But yeah, that is about all for my thoughts. I'm surprised I went this long, to be honest, but granted, I spent a lot of time on the news. So, yeah, thank you guys for watching. Let's finish off with our new segments. Here's your weekly release radar. Army of the Dead dropped on Netflix this past weekend. Talked about it last week because it was in theaters. I've got around to watching it. Solid, fun movie from Zack Snyder. Amazon Prime has a new show out called Solos, which is an anthology sci-fi movie or show that's all about loneliness and self-actualization, figuring out who you are as an individual. I have not seen it yet, but I'm intrigued, properly intrigued. And then lastly, Hulu has released the next Marvel show called MODOK, based off of the largely Iron Man supervillain from the comics, who stands for, I think it's mechanical organism designed only for killing. Something like that. But I've seen about half of the season so far. If you like Robot Chicken, and if you're a Marvel fan, you'll probably like it. It's not very comic accurate when it comes to MODOK, because he now has a wife and kids, but they do throw in some lesser known characters in there. They have some fun at the expense of Marvel characters that you would probably only know if you either read the comics or, watched YouTube videos about them. So it kind of rewards viewers for being fans of the characters or knowing the characters, but it also is just it's a fun ride. It's a very flawed ride, and sometimes it's a bit too much or a bit too slow, but if you like Robot Chicken and like superheroes, it's probably going to be the show for you. And lastly, my weekly recommendation this week is a movie called Lake Mungo. It's a horror movie that's framed as a documentary. Basic premise, strange things starts happening after a girl is found drowned in a lake. Made like a documentary. There's found footage in there. Really creepy. I had to run to my room after I finished watching it. Could not stand in dark hallways for the rest of the night. And then my sister scared me the next morning by standing in the doorway, and I roll over and open my eyes. And if you've seen the movie, you understand how incredibly terrifying that is. The scares in it are just very simple, very, just kind of like, oh yeah, this wouldn't be scary, but in the context of the movie, it freaks you out. It's also very depressing, very great movie about grief and sadness, and especially going back rewatching it in the wake of the death of a family member of mine. And if you know me, you know kind of what that is. But especially those recent events. Not only was it extra terrifying, but it also it so accurately portrays grief that I just really connected to. So great movie, 9 out of 10, easy, maybe even a 10 out of 10 to be honest. But really good movie, highly recommend y'all check it out. It's on Amazon Prime if you have that. If not, I think you can rent it. It's not on Blu-ray. It's not on anything. It's really weird because it's a small movie, and none of the cast or crew ever worked on anything before or after this. They kind of just disappeared, which adds a bit more to the creepiness. So go watch Lake Mungo. Let me come back. Let me know if you're watching on YouTube. Let me know what you thought about that. What do you think about Superman and the state of his movies? Do you think Man of Steel or Richard Donner's Superman are great? Some of the best superhero movies of all time, flawless? Or do you see where I'm coming from? Or do you even hate them? Are you not fans of them at all? Let me know in the comments below. If you're watching on YouTube, also press that subscribe button so you can get more content like this as I try to not fix, but change the show up a little bit. Just let me know how you're liking things. Press the bell icon so you can get notifications for every time I put an episode out, which is every Monday at 9 a.m. Spotify listeners, press that follow button. Listen to us every Monday at 9 a.m. Everywhere you listen to podcasts, you can get us there. On Apple Podcasts, rate us 5 stars if you please. I think that will be it for me today. Yeah. I was going to say someone else's catchphrase, but y'all have a good night. I love y'all. Stay safe. And I'm trying to think of a Superman catchphrase. And I cannot. So, y'all have a great night.